For the last few years, I've had this sense that everything I learned as a kid about how America's government works is completely wrong. But I had no idea how bad things actually were until I saw this one graph. Researchers at Princeton University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question. Does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left, at 0%, are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right, at 100%, are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well, you're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it. They get what they want, and guess who ends up paying for it? We pay for it with the most expensive healthcare in the world. We pay for it with a tax code that's a complete mess. We pay for it with internet that's slower and more expensive, with wasteful spending, a floundering education system, a catastrophic drug war, and 1 in 5 American children born into poverty. Almost every major issue we face as a nation can be traced back to this graph. How does this happen? Well, just follow the money. Right now, it's perfectly legal to buy political influence in America. Here's how it works. Let's say a big bank wants a law that would force taxpayers to bail them out again if they repeat the exact same reckless behavior that crashed the global economy in 2008. Not exactly the most popular idea with the public, and Congress knows that. That should be the end of it. But that's where the money comes in. It's perfectly legal for our bank to hire a team of lobbyists, whose entire job is to make sure that the government gives the bank what it wants. Then, those lobbyists can track down members of Congress who regulate banks and help raise a ton of money for their re-election campaigns. It's perfectly legal for those lobbyists to offer those same politicians million-dollar jobs at their lobbying firm. Then, those lobbyists can literally write the language of this new bailout law themselves and hand it off to the politician they just buttered up with campaign money and lucrative job offers. And it's perfectly legal for those politicians to take the lobbyist-written language and sneak it through Congress at the last second. So now you've got a law that greatly benefits the banks, and the whole process can start over. This is how a bill becomes a law. A special interest hires some lobbyists, those lobbyists collect campaign contributions, offer jobs, and then write the laws that Congress then passes to help those same special interests. This happens every day on every single issue with politicians of both parties. In the last 5 years alone, the 200 most politically active companies in the United States spent $5.8 billion influencing your government. Those same companies got $4.4 trillion in taxpayer support. And that's trillion, with a T. And that's just the top 200 companies. Never mind every other special interest, every union, every trade association, and every billionaire. Every single one of them can use their money to buy political influence. You know, there's this idea out there that this only became a problem after the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision in 2010. But the data goes back almost 40 years, and the results are clear. Corruption is legal in America. And as long as it is, anyone who can spend money to buy political influence will. The solution here isn't rocket science. Make corruption illegal. We already know Congress won't do it. I mean, one look at this chart will tell you that. What we need is a plan that lets us go around Congress and do what the American people do best. Fix this mess ourselves. Well, good news. We have that plan and it's already working. Now that we've got the problem covered, let us show you how to be part of the solution.
Too many people have died for people to continue speaking in terms that are unclear and just not speaking the truth. It's time we simply said what we know. Whether it's classified information or not, all of you have seen the results of what we're saying. What we're saying will fit what has happened here and what facts you've been able to bring out. This, our hypothesis is based on solid information, solid research on the ground, using human signals intelligence from our extensive capabilities. We don't guess, we know what we're talking about here. Their motivation is largely economic. They're a criminal organization, but they're part of a worldwide criminal organization. And they're here in your territory, taking your things, your factories, your lives, your people, for the enrichment of a very specific group of people who need to be held to account. It's almost as though it's a police problem. This is crime. This terrorism that you're suffering is worldwide crime on a scale we have never seen before. There has never been anything like this.
دكتور سليم بس يا دكتور هذا الموضوع مهم عسكري دكتور سليم تعليق بس
تعليق تفضل بس دكتور حابه اذا
Okay. I appreciate your statements and I recognize the truth and honesty of what you were saying, but I do believe there are areas of misunderstanding how the United States works politically. And this is a problem, a tremendous problem in the Middle East, and one of the things that's driven us here, it's very difficult to understand what has happened as far as Israeli control of American politics. And as succinctly as possible, I will explain this to you. In 2005, the Supreme Court of the United States had a decision on a case called Citizens United. The decision of the Supreme Court legalized unlimited corporate bribery. This turned control of the Congress of the United States over to human traffickers, narcotics traffickers, and in particular, the most powerful individual in the United States today is a gambling boss named Sheldon Adelson, an Israeli citizen who fled the U.S. living in Macau, spent over $1 billion in the last election, and bought control of both houses of Congress. Now Senator John McCain, the father of al-Nusra, the father of ISIS, will be running U.S. legislative and military foreign policy. American generals like General McInerney and General Paul Vallely, specialists in psychological warfare, helped organize Daesh, have traveled in and out of your country here, Syria, over and over, as has Senator John McCain, meeting with Al-Qaeda, an organization created by the American, Saudi, and Israeli defense forces and intelligence services. Only a little over a week ago, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, resigned. Chuck Hagel was the individual that stopped the United States from bombing Syria over the false flag gas attacks near Aleppo. It was our organization here that supplied the intelligence that stopped those attacks. It's our goal here, while we're here, to try to establish a method of communication that will allow Syria and other nations within the area to understand Israel's control of the U.S., the control of the U.S. by organized crime, and how the U.S. government is subservient to a worldwide criminal organization.